People of Earth, we have come to upgrade your cosmic consciousness. DNA activation ready. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. I'm Lou Quinto.
And I'm Craig Anderson.
Today, we're going to be coming to you from remote locations because of the situation that we're in with the pandemic of the coronavirus. And so Craig is at his office and I'm at my office. But one of the things that we felt was important as we're looking at all the news and everything is that most people are finding themselves in a situation where they are working remotely for the very first time in their lives. And one of the big questions that many people have is, how do I do this? And so what we're going to talk to you about today is we're going to talk a little bit about being effective as a remote worker. Now, up until this time, if you've never worked remotely, some people have the idea that working remotely is, sitting around in your pajamas and going over to the computer, sending some emails and everything. But I think we're going to find out very shortly that that is just the myth. And what we're really going to have to do is we're going to have to still be professional at our jobs. So this episode is going to help you if you are that individual who is not used to working remotely, or even for those of you who may be remote workers that want to look at how to improve your efficiency in working remote from a remote location. These tips may help you out. So the three areas that we're going to cover in being an effective remote worker is the first one is setting up shop. You're going to be at home. You need to set up your office space just like you would be in a regular office. The second area is during this time of becoming a remote worker, how do I maintain good relationships with all of my workers? And then the last one, and this is a tough one for a lot of us because not only are we working remote, but many of us have kids that are now being schooled remotely. And so we've got a balance between the work and between our children that are home also that need to be schooled. And so we'll give you some tips and talk about some things that you can do if you've got kids at home. So the very first area that we're going to talk about, we'll let Craig kick off, setting up shop.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, we're both working from our offices, and we both have been working from home offices for quite a while. So it is important to kind of, so when I started working from home about 2 years ago, it was kind of important to start getting my office set up, getting organized, get files. And you're probably, if you're just moving to work from home right now for this period, probably going to have to do the same thing. Get yourself set up with a workspace. Here at the house, my significant other is now set up down in the kitchen. Has got a big table set up in the kitchen, and she got herself all organized there and got her computer and her monitors and is in a working space there. Then my son has suddenly come home from college. He's got his working space set up in his bedroom. And then I've got my home office. So it's really important to kind of get organized, get everything on your desk that you're going to need, and really have that set workspace, right? So you know where you're going to work and you know where you're not working when you're in the house.
Craig, let me ask a quick question here. Is what if someone doesn't have the luxury? They're in an apartment, they don't have an extra bedroom, or they don't have
Sure.
That office area.
Well, even if it's just a corner of the room, right? Maybe don't work from bed. Don't just get up in the morning and start working on your laptop from bed and then move in here and move in there. Really kind of get yourself focused to say, all right, here's the corner. I'm working from the kitchen table, and that's what I'm working. Maybe that's what you have to do, or maybe you set up a card table off in a corner of the apartment. But to kind of have that space where this is where I'm working, this is where I'm not working. It really helps. One of the challenges is you find yourself kind of working all the time when you work from home because you don't have that. I walk into the office, I leave the office, right? I mean, you've probably found that over your time, right, Liv?
Sure.
So the other thing is, and this is the hardest thing for me, is you did kind of have that situation where I get up in the morning, I have my routine, then I go to my office, and at my office I have my plan for the day, and then I have my shutdown rituals for the end of the day, and then I go home. Really planning out your day. I think the big danger you have here is when you're working from home is, oh, well, I've got all day long to get that done. Next thing you know, it's 4 o'clock and, you did nothing. So it's really important. I have a time management system that I use where I kind of plan out my day and kind of have my ideal day and where I'm focused on a given day. So that's pretty important. The other piece that's tied to that is, have office hours, right? You're working 8 to 6 or 9 to 5. That's when you're at work, and build that into what you're doing. And then it's really just getting your office set up, right? Have the files you need, know where your pens are, have everything you need so you can stay focused while you're working at the desk or at the card table. And then, when you're away from there. So what you don't want to do is be hip deep in a task, really focused and say, oh, I need a pen. get up, walk around looking for that pen and then coming back to your desk, because, you know, when you break concentration like that, right, it takes several minutes to get refocused. I think it's like 20 minutes to get refocused when you get disconnected from what you're doing. So those, I think, are really key. I think the only other piece I'd add is, you know, as you can see, both Lou and I here are in kind of a video conferencing setup. Make sure you've got that teed up. I do think we're all going to give ourselves a little grace in these coming weeks when you see the dog or the kid running by in the background, because we all know we're kind of not in the controlled environment we might like. But do try and get yourself set up so that you've got a good focused video conferencing site. So
right, yeah. Now, and one of the things too is in maintaining and setting up shop at home is, as you indicated a little bit, it's really those distractions, those personal distractions. You know, oh, well, let me get the laundry going first, or, you know, oh, let me just vacuum the carpets, and oh, let me go ahead and prepare dinner for tonight since I've got some extra time. And if you allow those personal interferences in your day really take over, you'll find that all of a sudden it's 4 o'clock and you've got absolutely nothing done. And so keeping that mentality, and one of the things that I always did when I first started out on my own was I made sure that I got up and I took my shower and I got dressed as I would go to work, as opposed to keeping my sweatsuit on or t-shirt on. And so that I maintained that professionalism,
right.
you know, during the day. And that was important. The other thing too, that I always tell people is a distraction can be constantly checking your emails. Now, I know we constantly check our emails when we're at work, but when you get at home, you can probably linger a little bit more, not just on the work emails, but on those personal emails as well. And so when that list of things to do, or that time management, Craig, as you talked about, I would definitely recommend and suggest to people is that they schedule time on when they're going to check their emails.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you've got that email notification that comes across on your computer, turn it off. If you want to just say, okay, from 10 until 12, or 10 to 10:30, I'm going to check emails. And then
Right.
from 2 to 2:30, check emails. But if you've got that instant notification, I'm telling you, anything that pops up will definitely distract you. So you need to be real careful about that. And then also communicating to, you know, the family, communicating to friends that you're working from home. I'm sure many of them are working from home also right now as well, but letting them know that during the workday, even though, and as you said, Craig, we're all in this at the beginning right now. And so we're all learning at the same place and the same pace as well. And so there's going to be that, you know, I'll go across the street and talk to the neighbor, or, you know, we'll talk across the fence, whatever it may be.
From 6 feet apart.
Yeah. As long as you're maintaining physical division, that's perfectly it. The other thing too is this is a great time to brush up on your communication skills, because you've got a situation where you're going to be communicating with individuals that's not going to be face to face in many instances. So your email traffic may be a lot higher. Your text messaging, your instant messaging may be higher. And so maintain that professionalism throughout. So if you're sending a professional, you know, text message or an email, make sure that you're using proper, you know, case and punctuation. You're not using the, you know, your LOLs and OMGs and that, you know, try to keep those separate as you're moving throughout. And then the other thing too is take breaks. You need to take breaks during the day, just as you would at work as well. So schedule a 15-minute break every hour. I mean, what does they say that the average person can't sit on his or her derriere for more than, you know, 55 minutes. So every 55 minutes, take a 10 to 15 minute break, you know, stretch your legs, go outside, get in, you know, some more water, whatever it is you have to do. But these are part of the things that you need to do to maintain that mental sanity of, I'm working from home now, and the two worlds are easily combined. And when they combine and collide, you could set yourself up for not being a very productive remote worker. And the last one is maintain a healthy, you know, lifestyle. When you're at home, you've got your refrigerator and your pantry. And so therefore, there's more food that you can get at than if you were at work just eating out of the vending machine. So try to maintain, you know, a healthy, you know, lifestyle eating wise. If you've got a dog, take the dog for longer walks than you normally would. At this time, we've all got to maintain our health, and we've got to maintain our sanity at the same time. So the second topic that we'll talk about is let's talk about, Craig, creating a stronger working relationship, or maintaining a stronger working relationship with our coworkers, because we're not seeing them every day like we used to. How do we maintain that bond?
Yeah, it's. I think you may find yourself surprised that you're missing coworkers. There's always that coworker that's always popping by, and like, oh man, pretty soon after a few days working from home, you say, man, I really wish that person would pop by. So I think there's, when you're working from home, it's amazing how you can get just kind of enclosed in this space. And so you're going to find that those casual interactions are actually really important to keep your business moving. And if you're missing out on those casual interactions, things are going to get dropped. So, it's really important to find ways to stay connected with your coworkers. Like you mentioned, Lou, texting in that professional context, but getting the messages back and forth to check in on what's going on. Staying connected if you're going to take a coffee break, which, I guess this is the 50s. A person, oh yes, my coffee break. But, maybe it's taking a coffee break, or if you're going to have lunch, maybe set up a lunch meeting with one of your, just the same way Lou and I are doing it right here. Set up a lunch meeting with your colleagues so you can kind of catch up on what's going on with business. Where you can, schedule video with FaceTime. One of the things you'll notice if you start doing all your business by phone, there's a whole lot of interpersonal tips or, kind of things that you'll pull through from body language. And if you're doing it over the phone, you may miss that. I used to have a boss who I never wanted to talk to on the phone because you could get so much more when you were in front of him, especially from his body language and how he was reacting to what you're saying. So getting these teed up on doing a video conference may be a better way to do it. And I think it's important to kind of get into that whenever possible, especially for leaders to be seen and to be in connection with employees right now. I think if you lose that connection, you're doing everything between email and text, and you're not as a leader being in front of your people and doing that pulse check right now, that's something you're ultimately gonna regret. So I think it's really important for those of you who are sitting in leadership roles throughout the organization, make sure you're carving out time just for a 5 or 10 minute check-in, have a team meeting set. I've seen a lot of people talking about, we're building this out every day. There's a 15-minute check-in for the team in the morning. We're working, one-on-one every day or for 5 or 10 minutes. Really start building some things in, because I think what a lot of people are going to find is those casual interactions are so critical when you're walking through the office and catching up and kind of having those hallway meetings. That's all going to disappear if you're not very intentional, Lou, my favorite word, about making those happen during this time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll follow up with that also is, during this time, and I think we covered it, Craig, in 2 previous episodes where we talked about managing remote employees. One of the things we talked about is that a remote employee can very easily be felt like they're on an island all by themselves. And you may experience that as well. And so one of the things I always, say is that if you want to become a good remote employee is you need to be proactive. Check in with people on a regular basis. If you've seen someone hasn't been online or they haven't sent an email in, in a couple hours, just, check in, just, hey, how's it coming? How are we doing on this project? And try to be proactive with the problems that might develop, because you could be at home working remotely and you can have a problem and you may not be able to solve it, but you're embarrassed. You don't want to, check in with anybody. And so you sit there wasting a whole bunch of time trying to solve a problem that if you just reached out to somebody, you would be able to solve it a lot quicker. Well, imagine that's going on with other people as well. So check in with your people. And the other thing too is, particularly in this time with the coronavirus, communications also need to be a little bit personal. So take time to talk about not just business things, but personal things, because we're going through a lot of emotions right now. There's a lot of uncertainty that's going on, and we all need someone to talk to and someone to listen to. We need someone to vent to. So build in some time to build that relationship with your coworkers, to do the same things that you normally would have done, perhaps around a coffee pot or in a break room or something like that, where you're just shooting it back and forth. Don't hesitate to do that at this time as well, particularly at this time, to support each other, not just professionally, but personally as well. I think that's one of the things. It's, like 9/11, it can date back to 9/11 when I remember that situation. And it wasn't just making sure that we were going to continue, but that support needed to be there. So make it personal as well. So let's get into the third area, and this is a difficult area, and that has to do with how do I work from home effectively if my kids are also home? So Craig, you said that your son is in from college, so a little bit older than perhaps we're talking not elementary or high school, but you've got a son who's home from college.
Yeah, it's a different time to kind of, I was expecting him for the summer, but apparently I'm going to have him for quite a bit longer. But and I think I'm kind of fortunate to have a college age student where he doesn't need my attention at all, and so he can kind of self motivate and get the things done he needs to do. And it's certainly a much bigger challenge for a lot of people who are now suddenly working remotely with a family. Schools are closed; they can't. The student, your kid's there. So that staying focused is going to be a super challenge. And I was actually talking to somebody or watching a video yesterday from someone who has kind of put a "don't come in" sign on their office door when they were on conference calls. Well, it turns out it's great for the 3 kids who are old enough to read, not so much for the young one who couldn't. So I think one is to really set a tone of empathy and understanding with your coworkers. Not every one of your coworkers has kids, or and so for those of you who don't have kids and don't have those distractions, understand that this is somewhat different, right? So all that video we've been laughing at for a few years, that guy getting interviewed on the BBC, that is all of us now. We are all that guy potentially at any point during the day. So you're going to have some empathy with your coworkers about what's going on in between. So I think that's important. I think when you're actually sitting with your kids is, to try and we won't get into, the ways to deal with this coronavirus issue with your kids. There's a whole lot of smarter people than us talking about that. But what we do think is important is have those kind of conversations with your kids about what it means for the working environment that you're trying to do, and have those age appropriate discussions with them to understand, mom or dad is having to do this work right now, so they need some of this time. We need you to stay focused over there. And I would also say, just for folks in there with spouses or partners, you're going to probably have to balance that and find ways to, I think all of us leaders have to have some empathy for the fact that you've got people juggling schedules in a way they're not used to. So really focus as a leader on trying to optimize when you can get people together, but understand that you've got people with compelling or competing interests from 2 different employers on those calls. And I think the other piece is just, somewhat similar to what you were talking about earlier, Lou, is get that routine in place, right? Just because we're not in school every day, this isn't Christmas break, right? Get up. Let's kind of, I think rituals become really important right now, and rituals in the sense of things you do on a repetitive basis. So, if everybody in the family gets up at 6 and breakfast is at 6:15 and you get teeth brushed and all this, do everything you can to try and get that in place. I've even found myself slipping with my gym closing, right? It's like, hey, I can sleep in now and not work out, but that's not really going to be good when we finally all get back out into the wild. So getting those rituals, and then find ways for your kids to, have those activities set up, and, find educational things, and there may be a little more screen time, but try and make that screen time educational and focused so you can get some of the work done yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And if the one thing is, in all those conversations, address the fears that your children may be having when it comes to this situation, because they're just as scared, if not more scared than you are. It may be exciting right now. It's like a snow day, and they're off from school, but maintaining those rituals, Craig, like you said, if you normally got everybody up at 7 o'clock to catch the bus at 8:30, then maintain those same schedules where you're eating breakfast at the same time. And so that this way they don't notice the disruption as much in their lifestyle. The other thing too is, if you've got the opportunity where it's both, a husband and wife, or spouses that are both at home with the kids, I would definitely say one of the things you need to do is, in your scheduling between the 2 spouses, is do a divide and conquer. So if you see on your schedule, you have a conference call scheduled for a certain time, and the other spouse doesn't have that, has that opportunity where they can be a little bit more flexible, then that may be the situation where you're checking in on the kids to see if they've got any homework questions, or are they accomplishing what they need to get done, so that you're setting those expectations, and make sure those expectations that you're setting are realistic. Right now, I don't know if anyone can really say we've got realistic expectations. I mean, things changing by the hour, but we need to work, I think, and all of us are trying to get to some level of normalcy. And so when it comes to realistic expectations, your children, if they've got schoolwork that they've got to get accomplished, certain readings, certain worksheets that need to be done, homework that needs to be done, this now's a great time to teach them how to start creating a list of things to do and a schedule to be able to do that. And when you can get their schedule to match with your schedule, you'll find that a lot of the interruptions that if they aren't scheduled will start to become minimal over a period of time, because everybody knows that I've got a list of things that I've got to accomplish. And so I think in being realistic about those things, that's got to be important. So everybody needs to be on the proper schedule. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we hope that you learned a little bit about how to become a better remote employee. Times are difficult. And, Craig, do you have any, with key takeaways? What are your key takeaways?
Yeah, I think the key takeaway for me is really more for leaders. I mean, for everybody, it's kind of a new and challenging situation. But I think leaders, it's really important for you to stay in touch, stay in front of your employees right now. We didn't really touch on it much here, but there's obviously a lot of anxiety underlying all this. What does this mean for my job long term? Depending on your industry, that's either more immediate or less immediate, or maybe it's not a concern. But that's what's on your employees' minds, and employees see when things are slowing down, so you can't kind of sit back and say, oh, everything's fine, when your employees know, hey, we're suddenly doing less customer work. So it's really important to get your messaging and get in front of your employees and have these regular touch points. I think the takeaway from all of this for me is, from a leadership level, this is really an important time for you to not to hunker down in your home office or whatever and be remote. It's really finding ways to be actively engaged and touching base with your key employees throughout the day.
Yeah. And my key takeaway is, whether you're a leader or not, there are a lot of people who aren't leaders. They're just regular team members that are working remotely, and this video is as important for them as it is for a leader. Is that you need to develop your schedule. You've got to get into a routine. I think when I first went out on my own, that was the most difficult thing for me to do, is to get into a routine, to be able to avoid distractions things that need to be done around the house. And then all of a sudden I found out it's 5 o'clock. I didn't get a lot of work done, and I'm working till 2 a.m, getting stuff done that I really should have gotten done during the day. And so again, maintaining that schedule. I'm going to work from 8 until 5 or 8 until 4, whatever your normal schedule working is. Make sure that you are adhering to those hours. And when time is up, and again, it may hurt you the first few times, but in the long run, it's going to pay dividends, is that at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, when you normally go home from work, you need to close the laptop and you need to get into family life. And that's the way that you'll maintain a good family life, family balance, work balance during this whole thing. But if you don't, you're going to be working 24 hours a day, and you're not going to get a lot of sleep, and you're not going to be as healthy, and you're not going to be an effective remote employee. So, Greg, wrap us up.
Well, thanks for joining us for this kind of unique edition of Q&A and Breakthrough Leadership. It's been very different experience for us, but we hope the information is as valuable as you're used to finding it. So if you would like this video, share it with your friends who might be dealing with the same issues you're dealing with, and very likely are. And subscribe to our channel to get other tips. We've got some great videos on managing remote workers out on the site at QAleadership.com that'll help you get more wrapped around managing a remote team in a leadership position. And also, we are also available in podcast version. You can find us on all your favorite podcasting platforms. So until next time, I'm Craig Anderson.
And I'm Lou Quinto.